going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to do this embossed pocket stitch. And I found this stitch when I was looking for a very textured stitch that would hold in heat. So I think this would be like a really great scarf or infinity scarf, or even curtains if you're looking for a warm textured curtain. So anyway, I found this, and for some reason the way it was teaching me how to do it, one of the sides wasn't straight. It was kind of offset, and this side looked great and straight and perfect, but this side looked all uneven and messed up. I don't know if any of you guys had this stitch before and it came out the same way. So I struggled to find a way to make this side as even as the other side was, and I finally found a way to do it. As you can see, the bottom first row doesn't look as nice as the rest of them, and I can't seem to find a way to get that to get better. I don't know if adding maybe one more row at the beginning would help. It may, but I really wanted to get the stitch through the whole thing. And then I was thinking that if I just put tassels or something on the bottom, it would pull these bottoms down, and which would make these go forward. So it would make these not be so like hanging back like that. So you could try it. If you're making a scarf, put tassels here in these open spaces, and it may force these down and make these go up. But I'm going to show you how I ended up making this stitch even block like this, so that you can, you know, make a napkin or anything else you want. So for this project, I used worsted weight yarn. Also, I used a 5mm hook, or a size H hook for the US. And I'm going to be showing you on this larger yarn so that you can see the stitches, I hope, a lot better. The multiples of the stitch are 3 plus 2. So you want to chain in multiples of 3 until you get the size that you desire, and then do a plus 2. Unless you're working this stitch in the round, then you won't need to add the plus 2. The plus 2 is only for the turning chain. Okay, I'm going to do just like I did in the pattern. I chained 21, and then I'm going to do my plus 2 right now. So it gives me a total of 23. Now in the third chain from the hook, you want to put a double crochet. And now you want to put a double crochet in each stitch. The multiples of 3, and then you did a plus 2. The plus 2 just basically allows you to be able to put your double crochet in the third stitch, the third chain, but to keep the number that you began with. So you chained in multiples of 3 till you got whatever number that you have. Then you had plus 2, and then you do double crochet in the third chain, and you should have the number of double crochets in your multiples of 3. Okay, once you've made it to the end of your double crochet row, you want to chain 3 and turn. Now for row 2, you're going to be double crocheting in the second double crochet of the row, because your chain 3 counts as a stitch. So for this second double crochet, second stitch of this row, put a double crochet. Now in the third stitch on the post of it, so this is your chain, this is your double crochet worked here. Then in this next stitch, this next post, you'll be working the embossed pocket stitch onto the post itself. And the embossed pocket stitch starts with a single crochet, a half double crochet, and 3 double crochets, all worked on the same post. So you'll always be working it like that. So let's begin. First we put a single crochet, and you can turn Just like if you've done the crocodile stitch, you can turn your work to the side, pull up that post so that you can work on it easier. So I have my single crochet, then I'm going to yarn over, pull through 3 loops to get my half double crochet, yarn over, go in the post, pulling through 2 loops at a time to do my double crochet. You need 3 double crochets worked onto this post. So on the post here you have a single crochet, half double crochet, and then 3 double crochets, all worked on the same post. Now go back to your original row again and look. You can even drop your hook and everything for a second. This is your row. This is now the flap that's kind of in the way. Now if you move the flap out of the way, you can see your row continuing here. So you can see, obviously this is the post, it's now covered. So you can go by the post if you like. You can count, this is 1 post, this is 2 posts, because you need to skip 2 stitches now. So you'll skip 1, 2, and then this 3rd post, this 3rd stitch in the stitch itself. Go ahead and grab your loop again. You'll want to do a slip stitch there. So we're going to go in that 3rd stitch. You skip 2 stitches, go in that 3rd stitch and slip stitch, which is just going to pull that pocket against your work, just like that. Now you can see there's a little pocket. And these 2 skip stitches behind here, see 1, 2, are the 2 stitches we'll be working in next row. You never work over these stitches of the pocket. You'll always be working on these stitches behind the pocket. And since we skipped 2, those 2 stitches are going to be the one used next row. Now we just did the slip stitch, and we did we need to continue. So okay, so once you slip stitch into this 3rd stitch here, you're going to now be using the post of the stitch you just slip stitched into. So you skipped 2 stitches, you slip stitched into this 3rd, and then now you're going to go right onto the post of that stitch and work another embossed stitch, which is a single crochet, half double crochet, and 3 double crochets, all worked onto that post. Now again, this is your row here. You can pull your embossed stitch forward and you can count the post if it's easier for you. 1, 2, you'll be skipping those 2. And then this 3rd, find the top of the stitch and slip stitch into that stitch. Then on the post of that stitch you just slip stitched into, again you'll be working your next embossed stitch. And I always turn my work so that I can crochet over this post. So much easier. Sorry, I need to gather some yarn here. 1, 2, and 3. Now that I showed you close up, let me back up just a bit for those who have problems seeing it when it's so close. Okay, so again, you can just pull this forward, get a hold of your row here. You can count the post, 1, 2, and the 3rd, find the top of the stitch, slip stitch in that top of the stitch, and then on the post that you just, of the stitch you just slip stitched into, and again you can turn it to the side, grab up the post to work on it, so much easier. Work your single crochet, half double crochet, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then again, find 2 stitches to skip in the 3rd, slip stitch into that, and you'll continue that for the rest of the row. And if you look at your row here, you can see this is what your row looks like so far. You're making your little pockets. The first stitch of the row always looks a little strange, but as you continue on, it will look good. Even on this one, I think it looks a little off. just not quite the same as the others. Like I said, I don't know if doing another row of double crochets before this one would actually help. So you may want to do, if you're doing a scarf or something, you'll see the end, maybe do a row of double crochets and then turn, do another row of double crochets and then start your embossed stitch. Maybe it'll help. So anyway, continue this until you get to the end of the row and I'll show you how to end the row. Okay, when you get to the end of the row, you should have 2 posts to skip and then this very last post of the row. You have a chain here on the side, but don't count that. You just have those 2 here and then this is the last post. So you'll skip 2 as usual and then you're going to slip stitch in the last stitch of the row. Just slip stitch in there and then that'll bring your embossed stitch and anchor it down for you. Now to start the next row, you want to chain 3 and turn your work. Now just like I told you before, we're never going to be working on the stitches of the embossed part. We're only going to be working in these back stitches. And since you skip 2, you'll have 2 behind each pocket and you'll also have 1 in the middle where you slip stitched. So you'll be working in the 2 stitches in the back of the embossed stitch and also the skipped stitch. And I'm going to put up a picture for you so that you can see it much easier where you need to put your stitches. Now, you're going to start working with these first 2 stitches behind the first pocket and you're going to put a double crochet in each of those stitches. Now working in the skipped stitch in between these 2 and these 2 that are behind this pocket, you have this little stitch in between. Make sure that you get this little stitch and not this first out of the 2 behind the pocket. Get the in-between one, and I know it can be difficult to see, but do your best to find the place in between there to put your stitch. Once you've done that, keep working by putting your 2 double crochets behind the pocket here and these 2 stitches behind the pocket, and then you have to find the next place in between. Then you find the next 2 stitches that are behind the pocket. One, 2. And then again in between. And it's this post that you worked on, so it's got all this work on that post itself. And there's a little hole on the top, and that's where you're going to want to put your double crochet in between. Then again, you're working your next 2 stitches that's in front of the next pocket. I just push my pockets in front to keep them out of the way. Continue to do this all the way down your row. Okay, I just did the last 2 stitches from behind this pocket, and now I have 2 stitches left of the row. 1 double crochet here and then the double crochet on the end. So I'm going to make sure I put a double crochet in the last 2 stitches as well. Count your stitches. You should have the same stitches that you started with. Very important to count this row. Counting this row, every row that you do the back stitches of your pocket stitch is how you will keep track of how many stitches that you have. You started with 21 when you began your first sets of pockets, and at the end of this row I have 21 as well. So make sure that you count your row every time you do when you're doing the double crochet, the 2 double crochets in the back of the pocket and the stitch in between each pocket on this row. Every other row, count your stitches. And then when you get back to the end of this row, you'll want to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn. And again, just like at the beginning row here, we did a double crochet in the second stitch, and then on our 3rd post of our row, we started working our embossed stitch again by doing a single crochet, half double crochet, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And again, just like before, you're going to skip 2 stitches, and you can count the post to help you out, 1, 2, and then this third post and the stitch itself, you want to do a slip stitch. And then again, the post you just did your slip stitch on, you'll want to work your next embossed stitch. So you'll be continuing this same row again. And you can tell on the back if it starts to become wrong and you're starting to put your double crochets in the wrong spot on the back. You should be able to tell because they line up, the double crochets. So if you're starting to double crochet on the next row and they're not aligned, then you know that you went wrong somewhere. So keep doing this just like you did before. Again, skip 2 posts, and then the third stitch, slip stitch, and then again on the post work your embossed stitch. Continue till you get to the end of the row. When I reach the end of the row, I have only 2 stitches left. 1 double crochet and then the chain. So I'm just going to be able to skip only 1 stitch this time, and I'm going to slip stitch in the top of my beginning chain. If you end up with 2 on the end, then great, but I don't see how that happened. Maybe it's at the beginning. But what you do now is chain 3 and turn, and I'm going to do 2 double crochets instead of having the 2 stitches here. I usually work 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet. I'm going to just go ahead and put 2 double crochets in this 1 double crochet, and that'll give us now 2 stitches in that space. And then continue as normal by putting a double crochet worked in between, and then using the 2 back stitches now as normal. You're going to put 1 double crochet in each stitch, and then 1 in between, and continue to do this like you did before all the way down your row. Okay, the last 2 stitches here. The last stitch of the row is being a little butthole, the stitch before anyway. Okay, I was telling you before how also in the last stitch here, put a single crochet, a double crochet, worked in the top of the chain. Now, I was telling you before that you'll have a number and you'll end up losing 1. But in the last row, I didn't lose 1, so I thought, well, maybe I was doing it wrong before. But now, given after this row here, I have lost a stitch. So it just does happen for some reason. So at the beginning, you started with 21, and the next one ended with 21, but this one will end with 20. So from now on, the number that you're going to want to stick with is 20. And it shouldn't ever go down by another number. It should be 20, 20, 20 from now on. So it should be the same for you. If you lose a stitch on the previous row, where I would usually lose a stitch, that's fine too. As long as you get it down by 1 stitch. So if you started with 21, now you have 20, that's fine. So you want to chain 2 instead of 3 every time you're about to do a pocket, the pocket stitch in front. And now you'll be working, instead of working a double crochet in this first stitch, you'll be using this, I should say the second stitch of the row. You'll be using the second stitch now to create your first embossed pocket stitch. So I'm going to go right into that second post of the row, And now this will be the one from now on that I will be working. And then you skip 2 as normal, and then the 3rd stitch you slip stitch into it, and then again you'll be working right on that post that you just slip stitched into, doing your embossed pocket stitch. And you want to continue this down your row. Okay, I've reached the last embossed pocket on the end of my row, and I have 2 stitches here to skip, and then I have my chain. So you're going to skip those 2 last posts on the end, and you're going to slip stitch in the beginning of your chain 3. Then you're going to chain 3 and turn. And now you're going to be finding the 2 stitches behind your first pocket. I don't know if you can see with this big light on. I just went right behind the first pocket. Now I'm going to be going into the next 2. Wait, I got to go in between the pockets first. Then I'll go into the next 2 stitches behind the pocket. And then the stitch in between. So you'll continue to do this just like before, and you already lost your stitch, so I have 20 stitches, and I should have 20 stitches throughout my project. So continue to do this till you reach the end. Okay, what I do to ensure I'm going to have the same stitch is I will go through and I'll do my 2 behind each pocket and the 1 in between. So I get to this very end area, which is a slip stitch from last round, and then my chain. And what I'll do is I will just count up to this point. I'll count my chain at the beginning too as a stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I need 19 and 20. So I need to have 2 stitches here on the end to get my total of 20 that I need. So I'll double crochet in this stitch, and then I'm going to double crochet in the top of my chain 2 here. And I have my 20 stitches. Now you'll chain 2 and turn. And again, you'll be working your first embossed pocket in the 2nd post of the row. So not on the chain, but the very next stitch on this post. You'll go right into that one and start working your embossed stitch right on the post. So from now on, that is exactly what it'll be like. You always skip this first and right on the second. At the beginning, we were double crocheting in the 2nd stitch, but from now on you won't. You'll be using it as your first embossed stitch. And you'll be repeating those last 2 rows, which are 6 and 7. You'll be repeating those for the rest of your project. And it will eventually look like this, many rows later. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, please check the pattern. It'll have pictures and things on there and explanation, and if you still can't figure it out, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to try to clear up the pattern so it's easier to read, or try to explain it maybe in another way. And that's it. Please don't forget to like me on Facebook. I share other people's patterns, so it's a nice source to find free pattern links. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And please don't forget to share these videos. It helps me so much. Thank you so much for watching.